Yes, I'll play the video. When it gets stopped, you could straight away begin the reading. As simple as that.
Okay, I'm sorry, I
I,
didn't understand the last thing you said. When,
I would I would play a video, and then when it gets stopped, you could begin the reading. Simple.
okay.
Done.
Hello, I'm Laura Grevel, and I'm very pleased to do this poetry recital today for the Fertile Brains, a solo recital. I'm Laura Grevel, and here I will give you a brief bio for myself. I'm originally from Texas, and I've lived in Europe for 24 years. I'm a performance poet, fiction writer, and blogger. My writings are eclectic, tackling the immigrant experience, politics, storytelling, and nature. And my work, poetry, and other writings have been published widely in Dreich, sorry, that's Scottish, Steel Jackdaw, Lothlorien, Maori Literature, Moria, London Grip, and many other anthologies and literary journals and online publications. I often read at online international poetry events, open mics, and interviews and other events. Please view my poetry performances on my YouTube channel. And today I'm going to be telling you about I need to figure out how to do this. Um, okay, so here it is. Yes, I'm supposed to discuss with you why I write poetry. I write poetry for a number of reasons, and the biggest is it's a surprise. It's interesting, it's fun, it's also brain work, and I use my poetry to try to express the human condition, to describe the world around us and our connection with each other and the world. I believe that poetry is a search for an answer to a question that I had not thought about. And this is why it can become a surprise. Poetry opens windows. It helps me heal, helps me listen and understand. And I share and perform poetry because I hope that my work may help others to heal, listen, understand, empathize. And because can be fun and entertaining also for the listener. Um, my themes are, I write about really all sorts of things, all and in different styles. I don't have one style or two. I write all sorts of things. Surreal, I write realistic, I write stories. Um, and in my work, performance is also a big issue because poetry is meant to be heard, and because how one reads poetry helps the reader to listen. So that way, the way I read can be like a storytelling style, and my pieces can also be written like a narrative or story. And stories are helpful for humans to take in information. So my various themes specifically our politics, which includes justice, human rights, education. Um, and I will start there. And I will just say that the themes frequently overlap. And so, it can be politics, but there can be nature involved. Um, there can be there can be storytelling in that piece too. So in this first piece, I'm going to give you on this earth relates to politics. I am on this earth, and it is bucking and snorting, and the histories fly like angry hornets, searching for a bare stretch of skin to sting, and the certitudes and platitudes go on shooting guns, go on dropping bombs, and the cries of the hurt circle, and the anger cannot be silenced. I am on this earth, and lightning flashes across my eyelids, jagged forests of fear, and the certitudes and platitudes walk the street in plain daylight, smug. I'm on this earth, and it is rearing and bulking. The truths peck fierce, cut tendons, tear flesh. I am on this earth, and it is sweating and spinning, and the future hurls me towards the cliff's edge, where I will jump to follow the woolly mammoth. Okay, so this first piece um, is a dramatic piece, as you heard, and some pieces are more dramatic than others. I have also very quiet pieces. But this one obviously contains, and you might think this was written recently, but this was written, I believe, in 2018 or 19. So this is, unfortunately, human beings do certain things and they just don't seem to stop. Um, so this is politics. It's about justice. It's about human rights, and it's yes, it's even one of my themes is I didn't mention was spiritual, more spiritual and peace issues, and obviously there is a spirituality and feeling that other humans have rights too, and that people need to be treated well. This next piece is political. It is set in Austin, Texas, where I'm from, where I grew up, and it's called um, 1980 Juneteenth Rising. And Juneteenth in the U.S. and in Texas for decades, but more recently in the U.S. is a holiday. It's now a national holiday. In the last 4 years, I think it was made national. But in Texas, after the Civil War, in the 1865 or 7, I can't remember the exact year, there was an announcement of when the slaves had been freed. It was late. It was, I think, 2 years late, given, but it was a public announcement that they were free and they were no longer slaves. So this was a celebration. It's one of the first in Austin, Texas, that was public. There were private celebrations since the end of the Civil War, of course. So that's what Juneteenth means, and this was 1980. I'm walking down this hot street. I'm holding a baby walking down this hot street. I don't know why I'm doing this yet. I'm thinking I'm just doing my job. I'm a park leader, a skinny white girl on the second ever Juneteenth parade in Austin, Texas, celebrating the day the slaves heard they were free. I mean, I know why we're doing it. I work at a park, two parks. One, all the kids are black, one is mixed race. But it hasn't really dawned that the heat of this march is not just the sweat of our arms, the sweat of this child who is black, not just our sweat sliding over each other, intermingling and dropping, sizzling on the brutal street as the drums come solemn behind us. It hasn't even dawned that the need of this child is not just that this child's mother is at work, not just that this child is a defenseless infant, as the drums come solemn, as the drums come solemn, come solemn. We're marching down this hot street, a gaggle of kids between three park leaders, all squinting into the sun. Almost nobody watching from the sidelines, 'cause this ain't Congress Avenue. This street is a backside to ugliness. Between the Villa Capri Motel parking lot and the Lyndon Baines Johnson Presidential Library parking lot, a street radiating heat, cooking us like stew. But we march on, this baby and I. We made it, sister, and you never complained. At 9 months, you knew. It's taken me 59 years. Today, I'm marching down this hot street. I'm marching down this hot street with you. Thank you. Um, so that piece, obviously political, obviously it tells a story, um, and this was inspired uh, um, after the Black Lives Matters protests in the US. And various things went through my mind. And of course, if one has lived 20 years, one has only a certain amount of experience and hindsight. But if one has lived longer, one looks back and one starts to think, well, at this time in my life, I thought the world was like this. But now I look at it now and I see that it really wasn't like that, or that it hasn't changed since. And when I was young, I didn't really realize how recently the civil rights events had been. To me, it was all done, and like people, now it's fair, it should be fair, and people should be fair. But of course, people don't necessarily follow the rules or work, you know, are not good at working towards progress sometimes. And so I realized that the things I experienced in the mid 80s, I wrote other pieces about that too. I thought that was normal, but we're still struggling, and Black people are being shot and arrested and harassed at a much higher rate than whites in the U.S. So this piece, the next piece, is called the lack, and it is generally not just about politics, but civility in this world. And so that could also relate to spirituality and peace. And this piece I wrote more recently in 2024. The lack of respect is exhausting. The blood we can wipe away, but the lack threatens to crack everything we own, everything we do not. Why do you see those men over there with the ladder and the climbing equipment? They're dripping glue into that enormous tear where Earth threatens to split in two. Trouble is, when the tear breaks through Earth's crust, the glue will not be enough. The molten heart will come pouring out. By the time it cools, we will be in another ice age. There will be no turning back. And so with this one, I was trying to express that in the world, and in the US, in the UK, where I have lived, there does seem to be a lack of civility compared to when I grew up, as far as what was appropriate, how candidates, for instance, would talk about each other, and and people would there was more restraint then and more rules to society. And one can say, well, with the 60s and 70s, things opened up. But I was in the 70s, the 80s, things were not the way they have disintegrated now, where it is much stranger, and it's like a TV show, and perhaps people have been watching too much TV. What can you say if you all sit around, if people sit around watching dramatic things happening instead of, calm things? Okay, so this is another piece that is, it's called The Symbol, and I wrote this recently. It's hard to say what they think of me. They've never asked where I'd like to be, nor whom I'd like to represent. I've never been given a vote. I've been folded and left in drawers and attics with moths and mice, or taped across teenagers' walls. I've been slit up and burnt, or used to patch their pants. They hoist me high most days. I've held on tight above cemeteries and banks, ships and schools. They salute me and promise me the world, but I am left alone to be whipped by the wind or to hang limp and forgotten in cold and heat. I have been used as a symbol of their vanities, anger, and dreams. So this piece, you probably got that it's a flag is what I was thinking of, and it's a symbol, and it's what people use symbols as, and even begin to defend and to, use it as again, it can be used in a civil way, or it can be used as a way that is uncivil against others and an excuse to mistreat people. So also, you may have noticed my reading style. I try to read very carefully. I am hard of hearing, and so it is hard for me to hear others on Zoom and in real life. um, and it depends on the language, of course, and different rhythms and speech. And I've lived in different countries, and I do speak different languages to some extent. It's always hard to speak all the languages perfectly, and I certainly do not. So this one, um, because we're getting a little less on time, I think I will go down. Oh, well, I will do this one. So again, the way poetry is read does communicate the poetry. And so this is one thing I try to do with my poetry is to help the listener take it in. And I literally have less and less ability to take in poetry online, if depending on how it's read and because of my hearing. I read lips, and also I need to be able to see the person, see their lips. Of course, the more body language, I've heard a lot of the communication is the body language. So if you don't see much of a person's body on screen, which usually you don't, then that makes it more difficult. So I do believe, because sometimes people read very good work, but they don't read it with much emphasis, and I literally have more trouble understanding what they said, or even my brain with my hearing putting it together. And other people have said it can be difficult for them, even if they're not so hard of hearing, or they get tired listening. So it does help to read, with emphasis. This last piece on the politics, which is also really, I consider it um, related to spirit, and it's a women's piece. I have a pamphlet out with a couple of friends, and we wrote women's poems, each contributing 9 poems, and this was one of mine. And I'm sharing this one partly because a number of people have asked me, they said they like it, and I wrote this as a woman who was aging. And women who are aging, I've noticed in Austria, there's a group called Omas gegen Rechts, and that means grandmothers against the right wing. And people will write on there, people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, I've noticed really ugly stuff about you should stay home and take care of your grandchildren. And I thought, are we in the year 2024 that women can't do anything else and women shouldn't think? And these women were old enough to have experienced the right wing, or to, remember the stories from their own parents. And so they wanted to help their grandchildren by making the world better by protesting. So this piece, however, surprised me because several young people really liked it and asked me about it, and so I put it on my Instagram. So I, I probably need to put it on my YouTube so people can see how I perform it. But it's called Face Paint, and those young people had not seen me perform it who liked it. I want to wear paint on my face, not blush or eyeliner. I want stripes, an animal nose, anything goes. I want life, love, war, action, maybe even a fraction. I want to paint my mood on my skin, and I don't mean thin. A shimmering stretch of the Nile, the shy smile of a crocodile, a Botticelli with a belly, perhaps something from the deli, a Michelangelo or a Tangelo, the inconceivable, even better, the unfeasible. Hey, let's make it the bloomin' tree of knowledge with an Adam and Eve college and a pretty apple from Sweden that grew in the Garden of Eden, and lots of color to show my mother red, blue, gold, green, gobs of sheen to make my ghost mother say, did you go out in public that way? So, and it is good, yes, to have some humor in poetry. And this sounds like a lighter piece, but as I said, it's really also has to do with women wanting to still have a few rights as they get older. And unfortunately, I think in the world, usually women tend to have less rights and less respect as they get older than men. I'm going to switch to the topic nature and climate and just do a few of those. So this first piece I wrote for a festival in Bangladesh, and it's called She. The toad, as large as a child's dollhouse, appeared, mother-willed, near me one warm day, as I freed small trees from nettles and rose, wielding sharp clippers so wildly and gay. The silent toad crouched, judgment in her stillness, gray-brown in color, and gnawed as with clay. Her musing stopped my work as would kindness. Then my feet picked me up, led me away. Tonight, from this bed, I hear her again. Before dawn leaves a cold white hovering, she hibernates out there, a living hen. In the woods, in a burrow, eyes closing, holding her ancient knowing close, she prays, a simple silence that makes the moon sway. And that piece was a sonnet. I do write some form poetry. I do a lot of free verse. And I do think certain kinds of poems reach some people better than others. Some of my poetry has some rhyme, as you've noticed, even if it's free verse, and some doesn't. And I find all poems sort of a puzzle of how to make it work, because is the poem working and getting the point across in some way? This next is another short piece called The Search, which deals with nature and the climate change that I have experienced. And at least in my life and experience, I certainly think it's real. The Search. The planes crisscross the sky, searching for where to fly. The people cannot decide who to be, what to seek. The trees reach for time, bearing their thirst. The grass crawls along on pale and paler arms. The roots bury their heads, drinking the laughter of what cannot be said. That was another one written for a festival in Bangladesh. And now I'm going to do a few pieces on immigration if we have time. And I don't know if we'll get to the spirit section. So this first piece, there are several videos on YouTube. Girl Walking Across Europe. One is a collaborative video that I did with 17 East Midlands UK poets, and the other one I did it myself. And I wanted a collaborative group because I was a female walking across Europe and moving to different countries because I have lived in 4 countries in Europe and in the US. And but then I wanted it to mean more, to mean, the people who migrate, the people who are immigrants, people who are refugees, because it is a difficult thing. Girl walking across Europe. Let's watch a girl walk across Europe. Walk across Europe with a backpack and a cat named Hermione Wob. And as she walks, people join her, not to tell her to go home, not to warn her off the borders, but to give her flowers and biscotti and an embroidered cloak, and to walk beside her across the boot of Italy, where the sea captain did not get arrested for saving her from the sinking boat, but was lauded and crowned with roses, where the embroidered girl walks on with Hermione Wob to arrive at the Austrian border, where she is not sent to a refugee camp, but where the chancellor greets and gifts her with a handsome horse-drawn carriage, where she rides and parades with a brass band through a Vienna that throws her kisses, where at the city's edge she gets out and asks to walk on, calling Hermione Wob to her side, walking along the Danube with blue in her hair and honey on her lips, where she waltzes on, copper skin shining, singing an ancient chant. Thank you. And now I see here that we may be running out of time. I'm going to do one called Children. And this piece, I would say, is political. It's about immigrants, refugees, migrants. It's about spirit, this human spirit and spirituality. It's called Children. You will gather children, those you seeded and not, from the fields and cities, from the very air. You will gather them because it is predestined to meet them and share. Love is a commodity in great demand. Attention is a precursor to giving a hand. Be not timid, be bold, be generous. Walk the road knowing the paths will connect. From the east and west, the north and south, they'll arrive with questions, with avenues for advice, with grief and joy. They'll arrive from all continents. They'll arrive with contests and baskets. They'll arrive with a boat for the future. There may not be a place for you on board, but there will be space for your spirit, your offering to those who sail. Thank you again. And I'm going to skip down here and try one a couple of short ones about spiritual, and then if that's all the time, then we're fine. So again, poetry, one hopes, can heal people to some extent, can help them, can give them peace, can help them, or be encouraged to do something. On the other hand, this piece is called Chrysalis. The wild geese have flown south. The cool air has set up house, blowing away the heat of summer, blowing away the fear of fire. Cool yourself in the leaves of fall. Cocoon yourself in the fall of leavings. Wrap yourself in gestation, the folds of uncertainty, the time of trembling. Rest yourself in rapt concentration. Let new wings grow. And one last one that's short if we have time. It's again a spiritual piece called Epiphany. And I wrote this in the desert. Each bush and bird is a prayer. The feather, the claw, a surprise. The leaf, the bud, an answer. The ridge across the sky is a chanting wall. The cloud pattern, a repeated mantra. The breath of wind on nape, a kiss. The chanting builds itself into a fortress, faces off the all. No questions remain when love is revealed as mercy. Thank you very much. Rosanna, I don't know, is there a way you could tell me whether we have more time? More time. Okay. Yes, okay. So I will read more. Okay, I'm going to read these are a few more pieces that are, well, this is a sort of storytelling and spiritual piece called Journey. I named my daughter Journey today as she was born. The contractions came as wails that sang through horns of storm. I named my daughter Journey. The birthquake shook my frame as gales of scorn and glory sang rounds of rough refrain. My journey leaves tomorrow, grown tall and made of iron. Her legs spun long as thorns, her feet brass and morn. My journey treads this world in gold of self-made mold. Her crown is clouds of thought, her heart a piece self-taught. My journey leaves for future a state of mind and change. Her wails will guide her ship, the rain will bless her name. I named my daughter Journey the day that she was born. She leaves today for ever, where death is never Lord. So that is not a form, although it has a certain, certainly a rhythm and pace and rhyme. And I just heard of someone who had named their daughter Journey, and I thought that was so beautiful. And my work does have realism and surrealism in it, so I'll do another short one called With Petals Closed. Children are fragile. They grow with petals closed when the light is swept away. They walk on ankles turned on sides to reach the window that used to have a view. They hold their hands like closed bowls of cooking stew. They smell the past that once was in clear view. Today is no longer here. They hear instead their dreams, the magic carpets that fly, filled with goodly things. If only the children knew that the stars reflect our hope. We hear their closed eyes weep. We're braiding a ladder of love that will reach them in their sleep. Okay, and I have another short one. I'll try that and then check to see if we need to stop. This piece is called Airport, and it was inspired in an airport. In this meeting place of not meeting, throngs gather, not speaking. Sunshine shines through windows, but not into the hearts of humans. Air rises above, hesitates to speak in this crowded circle of intent, where each waits in a tent alone, wearing their expressions of not seeing, peering down at oracles of product, searching for the way of undoing the troubles of soul and sacred seeking. They wait while not waiting. Because waiting is a thing of the past, a forgotten gift no longer needed in places where we're meant to wait, not waiting. For the chairs to march forward, for the planes to speak, for the caterpillars to lunge, for the multitudes to speak in tongues, for human hands to rise and meet in recognition, to dance in humanity's perfect storm. Okay, so now, Prasanna, are we out of time or should I read one more? Prasanna? Okay, well, I will just read one more and surely he'll break in if that's not the right thing to do. um, so I will read If You Had Seen It. If you had seen it, that boy standing there on the meadow, 15 years old, long and lanky, and so in love with this world. His eyes so clear, taking it all in, the towering dark pungent spruce, the golden singing dandelions, the green grass, the blue sky, the showering sun. If you had seen it, the love in that boy's eyes, the love in this world's, would you have fallen in love too? Okay, now I'm Prasanna. Um, just wondering. Okay, well then I will go on and read one more. So these again have been related to spiritual things in a certain way. Also, some of them are telling stories, and I think I will read. This one is a historical piece. It's also in that little pamphlet of women's poems, and this is called "This Foot Has Done Some Walking," so it is autobiographical for me. This foot is 60 years old. Looks pretty good considering. History is there. Look closely. See my birth in 61, the car accident that marked me, the death of Kennedy soon after, The lying on my back in a cornfield alone, you see the bright green waves, the spirit the earth gave. See the schools that pressed my folds, rang bells to train, the football teams and Farrah Fawcett hair, the pep squads that shoved and cheered, the bus where Martin Luther King's dream was still being realized. I stood for the ride. See the alcoholic who caught my chances, turned the lights low, the mother who gave her last strength in the chase, the grandparents who kept the ship afloat with letters and dollars and sugar words. See the state government that employed me, let me read the books, the numbers, the politicians, the workings, the sometimes corruption, power that played, that drew national boundaries. See the paths through years of love, the friends and the husband who held my hand as the directions grew foreign. The distances grew longer, the path steeper. The languages and cities rose as daily riddles. The forests and fields became companions. See the words that sprinkled my life's road, the thoughts and dreams that shaped worlds inside the covers of miracles called books. This foot is 60 years old. Looks pretty good considering it helped write history. So thank you. Rosanna, is that good? Thank you. Okay, that's a good place to stop. Thank you so much.